Okay, so this is going to just be a quick video on my soak off process using Nuvo Nails Odorless monomer. So you see on the bottom here, it does say it's odorless and their ingredients listed as being EMA. I'm using their Caribbean pink powder with the liquid. I use this to take my state board exam, so it is definitely odorless because that is what the state of Georgia requires. Here's a dapping dish where I poured my liquid into, and I did sculpt this nail. I didn't want to use a tip because the tips do get gooey when you soak them off, so I sculpted it so that it would be just acrylic that was soaking off. This is after I was able to remove my form and the nail is cured, and you can see that it is have a sticky residue on the surface. So with odorless monomer, you do need to buff that off. So that's what I did here, was buff away that like an inhibition layer, almost like with gel polish. So after I buffed it, I went ahead and I shaped the nail, got all of that off, and I polished it with regular polish because I didn't feel like going through the whole gel process. Something I was getting ready to soak off tonight. So I soaked it off, and then I did a few other things, and I came back later about 11:43, yeah, to soak that nail off. I let it sit for roughly, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And I'm going to go ahead and soak that off now. I'm just removing my regular polish, and I cleaned out that same dapping dish that I used, and I'm just going to soak just this one finger in that dapping dish with 100% pure acetone. Alright, so I let that soak for about 20 minutes or so, and you do see that it does have a kind of gummy looking consistency, but I'm just going to use an orange wood stick to push off what I can. So keep in mind that acrylic does take a full 24 hours to cure, but I wasn't walking around with one nail on for 24 hours, so roughly about 3 hours after I did it. This is the process. I'm able to scrape off a lot, especially around the base area, but that tip is still pretty intact. So I'm going to go ahead and file on this some, get a little bit more of that off, and I'm going to clip that free edge. I actually probably should have did that before, but I didn't want to thin the nail out too much before soaking it because I wanted to see how the product soaked off completely. And sometimes if you file it down too thin, you may not get a full idea of what that soak off process is like, even though if I were doing it on a client, I would thin it, but I didn't purposely lay this nail too thick because I didn't want to have to debulk it when I got to the soak off stage. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back into my acetone for about 10 more minutes. The majority of it did come off, but I want to go ahead and soak that last little bit off. So after 10 additional minutes, I'm going to go ahead and use my orange wood stick again and scrape off what is still remaining on the tip of my finger. And then I'll just go in with my little orange buffer and buff my nail back smooth because I had just done a soak off yesterday actually. So I hope this video was helpful in seeing how EMA odorless monomer soaks off and how it cures with that tacky layer. So it does seem like it soaks a little bit differently than my regular Tammy Taylor liquid that I use, but it did soak off pretty completely. I just buffed it real good and finished reshaping my nail.